Ant-Man and the Wasp is the sequel to the film Ant-Man and is the 20th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Holy crap, we are 20 movies in now. So Ant-Man and the Wasp once again follows Scott Lang, who is once again played by Paul Rudd. He is on house arrest after the events of Civil War, and that's when Hank Pym, who is once again played by Michael Douglas, and Hope, who is played by Evangeline Lilly, they bring him back for a mission in order to help them find Hank's wife and Hope's mother, who is trapped in the quantum realm. So here are my thoughts on the first Ant-Man. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it. I know a lot of people really enjoy it. For me, it's like a mixed bag. There's things that I liked from it and things that I didn't like. I like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I think he's very charismatic and very likable for the role, but I thought the story was very generic. It was too similar to the first Iron Man, and I hated the villain. So here's the moment you have all been waiting for. What did I think of Ant-Man and the Wasp? Well, honestly, it's complicated. Just like with the first Ant-Man, there's things that I liked and things that I didn't like. And there are a ton of flaws in this movie. So like I said, Paul Rudd reprises his role as Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. Honestly, I really liked his performance. Ant-Man, honestly, is not one of my favorite superheroes. He's not as good as, say, Spider-Man or, like, Deadpool or, like, any other superheroes. But I don't hate Ant-Man. He's not really, like, my cup of tea. But Paul Rudd, I think, is perfect for the role. And honestly, even though Ant-Man is not one of my favorite superheroes, I don't hate the character, like I said. Like, you may see him in my Pop Funko figure collection one day. Just wait and see. And like with Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, he is a charismatic and likable lead role. So is Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp. Even though, honestly, she wasn't the standout for me. I mean, sure, she was cool and badass at some parts, but just, she wasn't the standout for me. The standout for me was Michael Pena as Luis, who is Scott's friend. Honestly, I think this character is hilarious, and Michael Pena is perfect for this role. And just like with the first Ant-Man, I think he delivers the funniest and best lines in the entire movie, hands down. Now, let's get to the flaws. Because, unfortunately, I have a lot. First of all, when I was filming this video, it took me a while to, like, really explain what the plot is, because when you go see the movie, it's easy to follow, but explain it to someone, it's surprisingly complicated. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the first Ant-Man, I will give it credit for having a simplistic story, because that is technically the point of it. Ant-Man and the Wasp, however, the story is very convoluted and is so messy. In all honesty, there are so many things from this movie that could have been cut. For example, Lawrence Fishburne's character. He could have been cut from this movie. He serves no point in this movie at all, except to be, you know, like a side character. And there are these group of criminals in this movie as well, who are after Scott. They served no point in this movie. Like, they could have been cut. They reminded me of the Goat People from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but to give them credit, they at least served a purpose in the story. And the villain in this movie is Ghost. And just like with a majority of the MCU movies, Ghost is a very weak villain. It was very disappointing because the MCU has been on a killer streak lately with all these phenomenal villains. For example, Thanos and Killmonger, they were incredible. The problem that I have with Ghost is she doesn't have a specific motivation. I mean, she is bad, but there's no motivation for her. She's just a sympathetic, generic character. To give Thanos and Killmonger credit, you cared for them because even though they were evil, you felt sympathy for them, and they had a specific motivation as to why they were doing bad things. Yes, the action scenes are cool, and yes, they were badass, I guess, but you guys might think I'm insane for saying this, but the action scenes, they weren't my favorite scenes in the movie. My favorite scenes, hands down, was when Scott was having a connection with his daughter, because it was sweet and it was heartwarming and it was easily the best scenes in the entire movie. So overall, guys, Ant-Man and the Wasp, yeah, it was a swing and it was a miss. Just like with the first Ant-Man and the Wasp was a mixed bag for me. It had things I liked from it, like for example, the performances, the action scenes, the scenes where Scott had a connection with his daughter, but it was unfortunately dragged down by boring pacing, extremely convoluted story, and a very weak villain. Honestly, I didn't hate Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's not a bad movie, but it's just, you won't see it as one of my overall favorite MCU movies. I give Ant-Man and the Wasp a C+. Alright guys, that's it for my review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And before I wrap up the video, I have a question for you guys. Have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet? What do you think of it? Do you prefer the first one, or do you prefer the second one? Whatever you prefer, just comment below. And if you want to see more of my videos, just be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content.